What's up, beautiful people and fellow rebels? So, today we are going to discuss a full guide to magic mushrooms. So, disclaimer here, this is not a video to get you to consume magic mushrooms, psilocybin. Um, this is for educational purposes, guys. Educational purposes. There is a lack of education when it comes to psychedelics and substances like that are similar to it, and I could be here to fill that gap. So, or just you know, you know, one of them. So yeah, this is not to get you to consume it. This is for educational purposes, and a little bit of entertainment, sprinkled in there. So let's get into it. So my background with magic mushrooms is that I was going through a really bad chronic illness for about 3 years. Uh, Started in like 2020, brain fog, depression, fatigue. Um, I was playing soccer and football at a high level, and I couldn't keep up with it anymore because I was so just drained and ill. It was bad. And one of the things that got me out of that was magic mushrooms. So I have a deep experience with them. I've been on about 40, 45 serious trips with mushrooms in the past. I'd say no, like 35 serious trips with mushrooms in the past year. I mean, not 3 years, 3.5 years. So yeah, I have, experience with them, and I want to share what I've learned along the way and provide, um, education to the ecosystem. So, yeah, so I went through that for chronic illness for 3 years, and magic mushrooms were one of the things that actually got me through it. So, my first magic mushroom trip, it it kind of changed the trajectory of my life in a profound way, um, because it gave me something that I couldn't experience in sober life. It was impossible to have that experience in sober life without a decades of spiritual work just in your sober state, whether whatever form that may manifest as. Um, it gave me that in 4 hours, and there's infinite value in that if you do it responsibly, which we're going to talk about, and with intention and with integrity, and you have a foundation set up in your life and you're not all over the place. So we're going to talk about that. And um and through this process I figured out, I stumbled across how to detox and heal the body, how to chelate heavy metals, how to heal the liver, how binders to suck up toxins in the gut, how to heal the gut, all that good stuff. I came across, one of the reasons was thanks to magic mushrooms, because I was on a trip once, and I was talking to my liver. Now, for those of you who don't have experience with altered states of consciousness, this might sound crazy. Like, you're talking to your liver, you're fucking crazy. Uh, but we'll talk about this later. But when you explore consciousness, it can get pretty weird. Um, you know, there's a lot I can say about it. But anyways, that's what happened, and my liver told me. It sounds freaking crazy, but I promise I'm not crazy. But it told me that that I'm toxic, that I'm storing toxins, and these are messing with my mind and my life. So that's how I figured out that there's something more to health, because I was already interested in health. I was already, kind of eating healthy. Thought I was doing the right things, but there was a whole nother level that I had to take it to. So that's my story, really. And from that process, I just kept growing and kept evolving, um, and I grew in my experience. And then life is awesome right now. Life is awesome. Of course, there's always challenges, but the difference is that I can choose those challenges without being held down by an illness um, that was just keeping me back. So let's get into this. And yeah, I'm gonna erase the whiteboard, write something new. So let's get it. Before we move on, newsletter in the description, massive value in there. Become a fellow rebel. And Ultimate Tobacco course in the description. Learn to grow, harvest, process, cure, ferment your own tobacco products in your own backyard. And Instagram in the description. So that's it for that. And we're on to why magic mushrooms and the stigma that comes along with them. So let's start with why magic mushrooms. So from my research and experience, magic mushrooms are the safest psychedelic, psychedelic um, substance that alters your consciousness. I'd say that the safest are mushrooms and LSD. Marijuana is a psychedelic in my opinion, um, but I'd actually put traditional psychedelics like mushrooms and LSD as safer than marijuana, because marijuana is mild, and there's actually a marijuana is mild, and there's a price that comes with that. The price is that you can abuse it. With mushrooms and something like LSD, if you abuse those, they'll show you real quick. They'll give you a kick in the ass. Um, so you don't want to abuse that. We'll talk about that and how it's actually very, very hard to abuse these substances. So why mushrooms? Because they are the safest um, substance when it comes to exploring consciousness and um, growing in that aspect and seeing what life can be. So that's why mushrooms, and they grow in nature. Um, humans have been using them for thousands of years. Um, and really, I mean, there's actually, I forgot what it was, but I'm putting in the description. But there was a chart that actually showed that, and there is something to be said where not as many people are using mushrooms and LSD as alcohol, for instance. But there's actually a chart that showed that there have been basically zero deaths when it comes to using mushrooms. The safety and efficacy of using mushrooms over something like alcohol, even nicotine. Um, I'm a tobacco grower, but tobacco products has actually, it's not even close. It's literally not even close. So, and then that leads us to the stigma. So, what is a stigma? A stigma is a mark of disgrace. I don't know if you guys can see that. I wrote it too small. But a stigma is a mark of disgrace associated with a circumstance, person, or place. So, what is the stigma when it comes to psychedelics and mushrooms, which is what we're talking about? The stigma is that you're a hippie, um, you're going to go crazy, you're going to lose your mind, mm, you're going to be lost in the clouds. And these are legitimate stigmas. These are absolutely legit, not legitimate. Okay, they're absolutely real stigmas. People who say there aren't a stigma around psychedelics are absolutely lying to themselves, because there is. Because what's happening with psychedelic and mushrooms, for instance, you're they disrupt the ordinary flow of consciousness, meaning that they break down structures and the status quo, which is what basically everyone and their mom is trying to keep in place, is the status quo. Now, there's actually a wisdom to that, because if you break down all of the status quos, you're left with fucking chaos. But the way to growth as a culture, as a collective, as a human being, as an individual, is to slowly and methodically break down that status quo, which is what has been happening for all of time. And this is why a fearful mind is a a mind that can't handle uncertainty, which is what they open you up to. So you have to have a foundation of just basic spiritual work and health. Like, like I said, I went through chronic illness. I'd recommend anyone who's going through chronic illness and looking for a way out to not venture into psychedelics because, you know, chronic illness will distort it. Heavy metals distort consciousness. So heal your body first. Make sure you're grounded in your life. Have a steady life. Like literally enjoy your life first before you get into these. Not because you're gonna lose your mind or anything, because it'll just be a much clearer and better experience. You know, if you decide to do it. Again, this is not telling you to do it. This is about education. So yes, there is a stigma, and because they question this, that you they allow you to question the status quo. You know, that's just part of this the stigma. And when you question the status quo, people get afraid. It's a scary thing. You get afraid because you know the life that you are living, um, it may be built on shit and on a castle of sand instead of a castle of gold or iron. Is iron unbreakable? I think Iron Man, yeah, or iron, where it's unshakable, where it's just solid. Now, this is what I figured out, that you know, you realize that your life and the way you're living is sloppy and it's built on sand. It's going to collapse if you don't do something. Now, you don't need mushrooms to realize this. Suffering will show you this, but psychedelics can show you that in a blast of an experience. So there is a a value to that. But again, we'll get into how often to actually invoke that experience, because you don't need to shatter your mind every day. It's not what this is. So yeah, we're gonna move on to the next part, but just know that mushrooms are safe when done according to the principles, and when there's education, true education around them. And there is a stigma when it comes to um, these substances, and there is a lot of gaslighting as well. You know, when you do them, um, people will constantly tell you that they're not a sustainable path, that there's really no value in them, and that they should just be put to the side. This Now, I've thought about this a lot, that this is true in some aspects, right? But where it's not true is, again, with how you're using them. My opinion will always be that you need to be grounded in your life and have a grounded spiritual practice, sober, and love your life just how it is. Because this is also the dream, guys. This is also the dream. This is also the trip. This the sober state is also the trip. Um, but with psychedelics and mushrooms, you can learn to make this an even better trip. That's what I've experienced, and that's what I've learned. But if you decide to venture into this, you will get gaslighted. You will be called weird. There's a whole bunch of stuff, but who cares? Because you get to be more authentic. You get to live your life according to your own terms. So let's move on to the next part. All right, so let's discuss dosing. So you have 4 doses here. So you have a microdose, which is, you guys, I hope you guys can see this, which is zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.5 grams, or 100 to 500 milligrams. And then you have a low dose, which is a 1 to a 1.5 gram, and then moderate dose, which is 2 to 4 grams, and then high dose, which is a heroic dose. In my instance, this is 4 plus grams. So let me make this clear. Again, this is for education, and we're not talking about sourcing here. So, anyways, so when it comes to dosing, it's not about leveling up slowly. This is this alone will save you from basically all dangers. This alone is that it's not about, you know, you do 1 gram first, then you're going to go up to 2 doses, then you're going to go up to 3 grams, then you're going to go up to 4 grams, then you're going to go up to 5 grams. this doesn't work. This does not work, guys. You could do 2 grams for the rest of your life and be okay, and be set, and be fulfilled with that experience. Seriously. And of course, it depends on the genetics of uh, the mushroom you consume. All that stuff, you know, um, creates the potency. But you know, guys, I want to make this clear that you don't need heroic doses. This is for experienced, psychonauts. Um, I don't actually recommend these. Always keep the doses low to moderate. Low to moderate. Always keep the doses low to moderate. Even I don't even recommend 4 grams. Anywhere from 1 gram to 3 grams is ideal. And a microdose, um, you can try microdosing. I know a lot of people who do with LSD, mushrooms, all that stuff. But I still feel like the real benefit with magic mushrooms is these full trips where you're immersed in the experience. Microdosing can give you some benefits, but you know, we're mainly going to be talking about these low to moderate trips where you're you could still, you're not gonna freak out or anything. Again, like, you don't want these heroic doses. I personally done one heroic dose, and it was actually due to that mistake because I didn't have education, where I thought that I could, I did 2 grams this time, so I could do 5 grams the next time. And that's what I did, and it was fucking stupid. So don't do that. Only do this if you're experienced and you actually want to. You don't need this. So this isn't, again, this isn't about destroying and annihilating your ego. This is about integrating deeper spiritual truths into your life. That's what this is about, guys. So dosing is extremely important. And next, we're going to talk about the set and setting, which is also extremely important. And these two alone, along with a grounded life. So a grounded life, proper dosing, and the set and setting will completely, um, of course, you might still have a bad trip, but what is a bad trip, guys? Why are you afraid of a bad trip? Like, ask yourself that. But this will completely eliminate basically like 99, again, all danger, to be honest, because again, a bad trip isn't dangerous in the sense where you're gonna die. Your ego might die, slowly, you get a punch to your ego and that hurts. um, but again, this eliminates all danger, proper dosing, the set and the setting, and a grounded life. So these three can actually fuel your life with a deeper spiritual meaning, and that's so valuable. And again, this is a lot of the stigma and the gaslighting comes from this, where they view it as you can't do it. You don't need it, but they can certainly help. So I'm here to give the education when it comes to that. So let's move on to the set and the setting, guys. Let's go. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I have the mushroom hat on. I was prepared. So the set and the setting. So set and setting is basically where you are while going on this experience and how you're doing it. So the mind state that you're in, the emotional state that you're in, how your life is situated, your external environment, all that stuff has to be on point, guys. It has to be on point if you're tripping seriously. Um, like if you're doing like a low dose, um, you could do them out in nature and stuff like that. While walking, so I like like walking and tripping, like that's like life changing right there. But we're not gonna talk about that. But we just did. So um yeah. So the set and the setting is so important. Guys, turn your room into a safe space. Like, um trip, do it do it alone in your room. That's the best set and setting you can get. It's a place that's familiar. There's no danger. It's your room. You know what it is, and you do a safe low to moderate dose. That's really it, guys. I feel like people overcomplicate this shit. Just do it in your room alone. Have a book. Again, we're gonna actually I'll just mention it here. Keep a trip journal. Keep a trip journal at all times. Pen, paper, guys. Pen and paper, because you're gonna be having insights and stuff like that into your life, and you need to integrate those. This is important. After the trip, you need to integrate. That's even more important than the actual trip. You just sit for hours and hours, and this is a part of the stigma that people don't recognize, that you have to work with the experience. It's not like you just have it and then just forget. No, there's work to be done on your part. It's not just taking something and then you just change. No, there's, that's what many people think it is, but no, there's work to be done on your part with, contemplating and just sitting with yourself for hours, thousands of hours, guys, and really integrating those insights and bringing them into your life. So, set and setting is important in your room alone. Um, if you need a trip sitter, you can have a trip sitter, someone you trust, someone you love, stuff like that. So, yeah, guys, very simple actually. You know, I don't know why people overcomplicate this shit. To be honest, it's very simple. Um, and yeah, like it sounds like it sounds like I'm being an asshole right now, but it's so simple. It's really simple. Um, but again, we like to overcomplicate things. So uh, let's move on to the next part. All right, guys. So the benefits and dangers. So you see how I write the end? I like that little that one. But yeah, the benefits and the dangers, and we discussed how to basically make the dangers to a zero. And so let's talk about what are the actual dangers first. We're gonna start with something less positive and then end it off on the benefits. So the dangers. What are some possible dangers of magic mushrooms? Like I said, dangers come. The biggest danger actually is you being stupid. That's the biggest danger. So the biggest danger is you. That's that's really it. But dangers that come from that, consequences that come from that is, um, from the extreme end is like trauma, disassociation, um, personality disorder, stuff like that. Um, especially if you already have mental illness, which is why I say if you're going through chronic illness, fix that first. It can exacerbate that, but that's not most people. Um, but I'll also say that the dangers have been skewed by the media. What was it in the '60s? This was a huge thing with Richard Nixon and the whole war on drugs disaster. But actually, I forgot the quote. I'll put it. I don't know. I'll put it somewhere. But someone who was close with, I forgot what it was, but someone who was close with Richard Nixon, who actually helped him with, fuel that war on drugs when it came to cocaine and um, LSD and stuff like that in the '60s. He actually came out and said towards the end of his life that that was manufactured. The war on drugs was manufactured by them to fuel the Vietnam War. So again, that's not really a conspiracy. That's actually a true thing that someone who fueled that came out and said. So there you go for that. But anyways, yeah, the dangers come from you and you being stupid. And so the lesson here is don't be stupid. Um, setting, um, your environment, all that stuff that we discussed in the beginning, or not even the beginning, before this, make sure those are on point. Again, you don't have to be perfect, but you can feel if you're ready. That's basically that's true. You can feel when you're ready. There's no one forcing you to do anything. No one forcing you to do anything. So let's move on to the benefits, guys. The freaking benefits. So if you do them properly, with the right principles and the right education, the benefits is that you get to fuel your life with spiritual insights, and just insights into how you can survive better and just make your life better. And the thing is, you have to work your ass off to integrate these. And this is what people miss. And I don't know why they miss it. Because when people, I hear people say that, they're not they're not sustainable, they're not this, they're not that. Well, there's so many factors that go into it. Like, are you doing them too often? Like, are you not working with them? Like, again, there's a lot that goes into that. But when you do them properly and you don't abuse them, which is hard to do because they're actually anti-addictive. But when you do them properly, and then you have that grounded, spiritual practice in your everyday life, and then you have, your life purpose, and you have, family and friends and all that stuff that you build up and really make your life a dream of a lifetime. And then you use psychedelics, and then you fuel that even deeper. This is what the work is about. And I feel like people miss that. I don't know why, because they do affect everyone differently, right? um, I'm speaking from a vantage point who's found benefits from them. But yeah. So again, the benefits are you get to fuel your life with deeper insights and deeper truths that can just make for a really profound life. And especially if you're caught up in just your life and just chasing after things endlessly, in materialism, basically neoliberal, what do you call it, neoliberalism, you're just fucking chasing endless shit. um a psychedelic experience, you know delving into psychedelics, and you actually want to change, that could do you some good. Now, if you're naturally a, how do I say it, like, easygoing person, um go with the flow type person, maybe psychedelics aren't for you. Maybe you need to work more on your material world, because that's also very important. Your work, whatever, maybe you need to work more on that. Psychedelics can help you with that. Maybe they'll show you that, but at the same time, maybe they're not what you need. Maybe you need tobacco, okay? Because tobacco is a grounding plant. But no, maybe you just need to focus on your material survival, because that's also, there's such a beauty to that too. And that's, also what they can show you, that uh, life is a multifaceted thing that requires work on many fronts. That you need to work on your material world, on your spiritual life, on your emotional mastery, on your mind. All these things contribute to a full and fulfilling life. And most people get stuck on a singular track, whether it's chasing trophy wives and fast cars and, material, endless material pursuits of pleasure and dopamine fulfillment. Whether it's that, or whether it's renouncing all those things and just focusing on, your spiritual life, or just being an emotional mess, all these things need to be integrated and, whole. This is the concept of holism. And from my experience, psychedelics actually, mushrooms actually do help with this. But they can also uh, not help with this. Again, it all depends on how you use them, and your commitment, and your ability to integrate insights. You need to actually, uh, this is a muscle, guy. This is actually a skill set to be able to have insights, but then be able to integrate them in your life. That's a valuable skill set, um, in your life. Very valuable. So it's essentially about, the biggest benefit is that you can develop this holistic mindset. Not even mindset. It's a way of living. It's more than an attitude. Even it's a deep truth, that holism is like a deep truth that you'll discover, um, that it requires a work and commitment to making your life whole, not just fragmented, where you're, again, like, where you're focused on one particular aspect of life. And maybe that actually, there is some wisdom to that. You focus on one, and then you develop that, and then you focus on another, and then you can actually just gradually um, make them more balanced. But when you spend your whole life focused on one domain and that's it, um, you're 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 not fucked, but your your experience like your experience of life is going to be like less than 1% of what it can be. So yeah, those are the dangers and the benefits. Again, you can mitigate the dangers by being responsible and not being stupid, and the benefits are basically infinite. But again, this isn't a sale point. I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I'm just trying to give you free game. No, I'm just giving my experience. So let's move on to the next part.